I had a really hard time accepting Aaron Rodgers getting hurt a couple of weeks ago. So I started going through some of the gut punches that I've taken as a sports fan over the years. One of them I think was Jeremy Lin signing with the Houston Rockets.
Oh,
To go from out dueling Kobe Bryant in February to getting hurt in March of that year and then leaving New York altogether a couple months later, it was so abrupt and surprising. And I think like Knick fans thought he was going to be here for a decade and then he was gone. But
yeah.
those couple of weeks in February 2012 contributed to some of my best memories as a Knicks fan. How was it for you,
Yes.
getting put on the Jeremy Lin beat for Sports Illustrated?
Yeah, I mean that story is the most. I've talked about a lot of out of body surrealistic things that I have like lucked into covering and doing. That's probably number one overall, like in my power poll. Um, I'm Asian American. I went to Harvard. I covered him for Sports Illustrated when he was a senior in school, and knew his parents. Followed him. Was texting him when he got picked up by the Knicks. Had no idea about any of this, and then for Sports Illustrated, I end up writing these two straight cover stories about him on Deadline, competing against like Frank Isola and like New York tabloid writers who had no idea who I was at the time. And that story, so number one, Jeremy Lin dropping 38 at the Garden against the Lakers in 20, in that year. Gosh, it was the greatest sporting event I've ever seen in public, in person. The 2012 season was the most surreal thing I've ever covered. And so I was the guy, incidentally, who broke, heartbreakingly. Again, this is where I'm mindful of, like, I'm also a little conflicted here. Shout out to anybody who has rooted for a team while also covering a team. It's really difficult. But I was the one who broke the story that he was signing with the Rockets.
Yeah.
I was on the phone with him and his agents that night, and I was shocked. And the reason why being that, again, I won't relitigate it with you here, but like the Knicks told him, like, go find your market. He found a market. He found a bidder. The Rockets put a poison pill balloon thing into his contract, so they got paid a lot more than the Knicks were comfortable paying. And that was it. And the happiest, I grew up a Knicks fan, by the way. I should say that. I'm from New York natively. Grew up in Manhattan, like blocks away from MSG. So all of this, it was as beautiful on the front end as it was a waste on the back end to me. And never really have gotten over that one. That's like the ultimate like counterfactual alternate history is Jeremy Lin doesn't get hurt, doesn't hurt his knee.
Yeah.
The Knicks keep him, which it should have done anyway. And he finally gets a chance to like prove that he wasn't just 2 weeks in 2012.
What did covering Jeremy Lin do for your career and even eventually getting to ESPN?
It was huge. I mean, it proved to me that I could write on Deadline, that I was qualified to cover like the biggest story in the world, even though it was so specific and personal to me that it was obviously like the roulette wheel smiling upon my existence, right? Luck was so profoundly important, but also I was given a challenge and I pulled it off and my editors liked it. And that was incredibly gratifying. But then my next editors liked it. That was the bigger thing, right? Was that ESPN basically, that was like that was a tipping point towards me getting a job offer. They like had seen that work. They knew that I could hang, in that way. And so, yeah, I told Jeremy this, like, I owe him in a way that is, again, journalistically conflicted, but covering him, without that, I don't know if I'm talking to you today. Yeah, I just don't.
Had Linsanity continued, like had it gone on to be a 10-year run in New York, and obviously this is a big hypothetical, but do you think that you would have continued to cover it, and could you have almost used it to help foster a career as an NBA reporter, like similarly to the way Brian Windhorst was attached to LeBron James earlier in his career?
It's so funny, man. I had never thought about that. But yeah, like I definitely would have tried to do that. I was trying to write a book with Jeremy, and he said no to me, by the way. Like I was
really?
trying to, yeah, but I get why, because he was the most sort of like sought after athlete on the planet at the time. I was clearly too thirsty. I was trying to overstep in the way that I feel like, a little cringe about now. But I was enterprising enough to try and make sure that this opportunity in my career did not go to waste. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, by that logic, I definitely would have tried to become the Brian Windhorst to Jeremy Lin's LeBron James, as pathetic as that would have been for everybody involved. Yeah, I would have made the NBA my beat. I always loved the NBA more than anything else. Wrote about it, covered it at ESPN for the magazine. But I would have gone all in on like Linsanity as you know, an industrial complex. And it would have been very disappointing for everybody, I think, in the end. Yeah.